Cash was really not the person that you guys keep trying to make Johnny Cash out to be. Let's let Johnny Cash tell you a little bit about Johnny Cash.
I would like to have been on that mountain when Jesus was preaching. I would like to have been listening.
Comes, well, he's a liberal. It's like me saying that I was not a racist was then people saying, well, then you must be a liberal. Like, obviously there are things that are not okay. Being a racist is not okay.
Country and folk music's roots were very progressive, and it's very strange and disappointing to see the disconnect. Nashville becomes controlled by a few very large record labels that cater to that conservative, white, nationalist audience. I just think it's a shame what they did to country music. It's just so crazy to me how the plot was completely lost. I don't understand why there is just this big disconnect. Like, do country artists not know the people that pioneered the genre would completely hate everything that they're saying?
Hey, how's it going? My name's Bree, but you can call me Tall Bev. And you can also find me at these places. Before I get into today's video, I just wanted to make a little disclaimer. I'm not talking down about country music. I'm not talking down on any country artists or anything. I'm not trying to designate anybody's political affiliation. I just want to talk about some interesting contradictions I see in the country genre as a whole and the attitudes and the audiences within it. I love music. I love country music. I love America. I love my husband. We both love Johnny Cash. You know, we're just here to notice some things in the world around us. So listen up, my sweet summer children. So Trumpmerica 2.0 is a little weird, to say the least. In the last couple of years, we've noticed these massive negative public reactions becoming the norm, when the initial remark is criticizing this current administration or advocating for anti-fascist ideals. Suddenly being against fascism is considered unpatriotic and going against American values. These expressions in online content, music, movies, art, and the people who make them are being treated as blasphemous, even though the First Amendment is as American as apple pie. Who knew? Yes, unfortunately for those who love the taste of leather, Americans have the right to speak out against the government and ask for necessary policy reforms. One of the most American formats to express these feelings is through country music. So I used to be one of those people, like, if you asked me what my favorite music is, I would say anything except country. But the older I get, the more I realize that's just not true. I've always loved country music. I think I get, my brain gets locked in with the way we think about it these days is like, I really don't like post 9/11 country music, but there's so much good stuff before that. I mean, and now too. I listen to tons of country and Western music. Most of the stuff that I like was made between like the 40s, 50s, and like the 1990s. Patsy Cline, Willie Nelson, Charlie Pride, Slim Whitman, Loretta Lynn, Conway Twitty, dude, Jackson C. Frank, David Allan Coe, Skeeter Davis, Dolly, Swear on Dolly. Iconic. The storytelling in country music, the relatable identities of everyday working class people, the themes of love and loss have captivated not only American audiences, but worldwide audiences for generations at this point. One of country music's most cherished and memorable stars was, of course, Johnny Cash, whose legacy in America has been consistently blurry, as is the debate of what makes country music country. I'm going to talk a little bit about Johnny Cash as an example later on in the video. I just figured he would be an easy focal point for us to talk about today. Country music is one of the most popular and most highly evolved genres of music in the Western world. Its history in the United States stretches back 150 years, but its roots really trace back to Old English, Scottish, Irish, African, Indigenous, and Hawaiian influences. From the early 1920s, the music industry actually segregated country music by race, country music being the white artists' version, and black artists having race records. This distinction by race obviously didn't last to current day, but the country genre as a whole, or at least the word country when you describe music, has come to be identified with that commercialized pop country sound and the identity of Southern, white, straight, conservative Christian man. But honestly, I would argue that the impact of this still kind of lives on in today's world, but a little more under the radar. I can't help but mention last year's Grammys, 2025 Grammys, when Beyonce won Album of the Year and Best Country Album for Cowboy Carter. After she won the Country Award last year, the Recording Academy decided to split the category into two awards, one for traditional and one for contemporary country music. In an article from the Associated Press, the Academy defines traditional as recordings that adhere to the more traditional sound structures of the country genre, including rhythm, singing style, lyrical content, traditional country instrumentation, while contemporary, quote, utilizes a stylistic intention, song structure, lyrical content, and/or musical presentation to create a sensibility that reflects the broad spectrum of contemporary country style and culture. Now, I'm not a professional music critic or music historian, and these definitions read sort of vague to me, but I take traditional to refer more to the sound of the music, while contemporary is more like the vibe. The overall doesn't have a country vibe. From what I understand, it was kind of overdue for the Grammys to create another country category, but still, the timing and the verbiage of this was still just came off really crass. Especially when Beyonce went on to the CMAs and got completely snubbed. Again, country is a really varied and evolved genre, so another Grammy for it is a good thing. But to make this change right after a black woman wins the Best Country Album award just doesn't sit right with me. So what defines country music? This is a big question, and there isn't really one established answer to it. Especially if you understand that genre is kind of this capitalist creation used to market and categorize things like music and movies. In the context of country, some people would say it's related to instrumentation. For instance, banjos, steel guitar, accordion, acoustic guitar. Some would say it's related to the rhythms like honky-tonk, ballad, country waltz. Some would say it's about the distinct vocal styles of country music. And some would say it's more about the storytelling aspect of country music, as well as its kind of method of preserving traditions and creating community identities to carry on into the future. And all that being said, country music has kind of become this paradoxical home to a lot of different ideologies and a wide array of political expressions. Country music has always been and will always be political. It has always been a vehicle for some of the most bigoted takes on our society, as well as some of the most progressive. After the Civil War, Confederate sympathizers used country music to reinforce the Dixie identity, which carried on themes of racism and emblemized the Confederate flag into that identity of being a Southerner. But country traditions, spreading from the American South, have also always called for solidarity and have always included songs of struggle. During the Great Depression, country musicians sang about poverty, humility, hard work. After the end of World War II, they wrote songs celebrating FDR's New Deal and the relief it provided everyday Americans. In the 60s, conservative artists wrote songs poking fun at hippies or people who used government resources. During the women's liberation movement, female country stars wrote songs challenging social norms, and still others wrote about being wary of women's growing role in society. In the late 60s and early 70s, Johnny Cash played a series of live shows in prisons and called for prison reform. And country artists also wrote supportively or critically against the US's involvement in the Vietnam War. The outlaw country era saw pushback against pop-polished country music made for mass appeal by record companies in favor of removing creative control from those record companies. But absolutely, the most important event that altered the country genre as a whole was the fallout of 9/11. The 9/11 attacks ushered in this strong sentiment of commercialized patriotism and support for U.S. military efforts, and the U.S. military as a whole. Country music once again became more popular than ever, and became pop-polished for mass appeal, and themes of the songs turned more materialistic instead of the more candid commentary we had seen historically in eras before. Songs started being more and more about trucks, land, the clothes you wear, women, drinking, partying, that kind of thing. The American flag, don't even get me started. These themes cleverly hide capitalistic, individualistic, subservient, bootstrap ideals under lyrics about emotional, personal issues and national pride and suppressed wider scale social critiques. I don't know about you, but it's kind of hard for me to reconcile the bad boy, masculine archetype symbolized by country stars with the bootlicking loyalists we've seen after 9/11.
There's two things that I love, and it's outlaw country and the law. Oh yes, give me that big old leathery cop boot so I can just...
Critics have often called this pandering country, because in it, the artist checks off this stereotypical list of like Southern conservative tropes in the song, even though the writer of that song is actually a millionaire who's not working his land, who isn't wearing, $50 boots, who isn't just another one of the guys at the factory or whatever on the farm. I don't know. If you're a comedy fan, in one of Bo Burnham's Netflix specials, he wrote a song about this actually, and it's just called Country Music parentheses Pandarin, that plays on this really well. One of the lines that I liked from it was, "I walk and talk like a field hand, but the boots I'm wearing cost $3,000. If you're a comedy fan, I'll put a link to that song below. But what the ultra patriotic pop country fans forget about is that country was the prototypical punk music. Throughout the whole genre's history, country music has been a medium that normal people have used to lament injustices, to sing for the needy, the innocent, even the criminals. Wrote about sinners turning from their ways and rebellion against systems that don't serve them. Country music has been used to promote unions and workers' rights, and it's a way that people voice their frustrations against the government. So in this era now where like anything less than radiant loyalty to America is blatantly un-American, why do MAGA and conservatives still worship Johnny Cash, the man in black outlaw who advocated for people who go against the traditional grain? But to answer my question about what defines country music, I really resonated with something I read in this article by Phoebe Davidson, who said, "Country music is both a mirror and a molder of American society. It reflects a nation grappling with its identity, marked by contradictions of oppression and resilience, nostalgia and progress. Country music is a tricky genre to try to define, but I would say it's pretty uniquely American. It was drawn from elements of our ancestors and people who were brought here. It seeks to both conserve our identity and also improve our society." I just need to mention this song that I found when I was researching for this. I'd never heard it before, maybe you have, but if you haven't, strap in, dude. This song is by Brad Paisley and LL Cool J, and it's called Accidentally Racist. It's basically the country song equivalent of that Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. I wanted to mention it because there's a couple of lyrics I had to read because I couldn't believe they were real when I first saw it. "The relationship between Mason Dixon needs some fixin'." And at the end of the song, LL Cool J says, "R.I.P. Robert E. Lee, but I gotta thank Abraham Lincoln for freeing me, you know what I mean?" This song absolutely killed me. I'm gonna link it on the screen. I think their hearts were in the right place when they went into the studio to do this together. But dog, if you need a good laugh, read the comment section under that video I linked. So if you grew up in the US, you kind of know that Johnny Cash is this enigmatic figure in US culture. He was known for his man in black persona, for being a proud American, and also for the devout Christian faith he found later on in his life. He served in the Air Force during the Korean War, and he defended the First Amendment right to burn the flag, even though he fiercely cared for the flag. Johnny Cash had some complicated substance abuse issues and had some arrests for drug-related crimes, and his first wife was Vivian Lombardo. Now, Vivian was racially ambiguous in a time when interracial marriage was still scorned, and they were harassed by the media, but the KKK made direct threats to them. Now, Johnny's addiction issues and adultery led up to them getting divorced, and obviously if you know anything about Johnny Cash, then he married Drew Carter and so on and so on. But he's really stuck in our culture because he has this Southern working class Christian identity that a lot of people identify with, and he grew up during segregation, but he was a proud Southerner, and he had a very complex reconciliation between his heritage and his value of empathy for everyone. Now, obviously, just based on these few little things I've just said, Johnny Cash was a very imperfect person, but he rooted for the underdogs. Whether you label him a liberal or more conservative, he didn't really fully fit either one. He never endorsed any political candidates, any political parties, and he actually claimed to never have voted in his life. Now, whether or not you believe that voting really makes that big of a difference, I still think it's important to, just so we don't lose that right anytime soon, especially these days. But Johnny Cash's blurriness this way, I think, opens a strong conversation for how we find our own values and how we decide what our own politics are. When the answers lie somewhere between two starkly different perspectives, you have to think of what principles you have based on your life experiences. You know, fighting for what you believe is right, advocating for people who don't have a platform to advocate for themselves on. As Michael Stewart Foley wrote in his book, Citizen Cash, Johnny Cash practiced what I call a politics of empathy. He came to his political positions based on his personal experience, often guided by his own emotional and visceral responses to the issues. In the same way that social movement theorists have written for years now about the role of emotion and storytelling in mobilizing for one cause or another, Americans often engage political questions on the basis of feeling, not doctrine. Cash's politics of empathy should not seem illegible either, because it reflected certain time-worn American ideals. It was fundamentally democratic and inclusive. He never trafficked in grievance and rarely expressed bitterness when related to others. Through his art, Johnny Cash mourned the betrayal and genocide of Native Americans. President Nixon famously courted Johnny Cash's friendship for a while, but Johnny Cash ignored his invitations to the White House and things, and instead released the song What is Truth, which questioned the Vietnam War and pissed Nixon off royally. What is Truth suggested that Nixon and all the other guys in the White House dealing with the war efforts at the time hear out the long-haired hippies that they mercilessly mocked and see if they might have something good to say. Like I said before too, Johnny Cash called for reform of the criminal justice system to the point of meeting with 6 sitting presidents and even testifying before Congress about poor prison conditions. He advocated for civil rights, he hated the KKK, but at the same time, he was a strong supporter of Second Amendment rights. And he was proud to be from the South. And I think today there's kind of some association fallacy going on in terms of how right-wingers idolize him in today's world. Johnny Cash created the Man in Black to show solidarity with the poor, the criminals, the beaten down, the marginalized, and the oppressed. I have to shout out our current pop diva, Zara Larsson, on this point as well. She recently got some backlash after she posted these Instagram stories expressing similar values to this. She said she lost lots of money in terms of like deals, I don't know, brand deals, or she said she lost a bunch of money. But she said, no, you need me, I don't need you. And she took it in stride because she knows what she stands for. She doesn't need any deal. She doesn't need any money from anyone that doesn't align with what matters to her and what she feels is right. I stan this queen. She's an amazing example of setting your own boundaries, even in a career like hers in the entertainment industry, where to this day lots of men and big corporations pull the strings. But I think it's so powerful in our world right now to be outspoken that way and say exactly what she said. Yeah, she's a bad bitch. I salute you. I've seen so many of the people who would say they don't align with those kind of values, identifying with sinners, criminals, wanting civil rights and women's rights, having this image on like flags or t-shirts or stickers, posters. It's really weird to see someone so stuck in their own fallacy, sort of, claiming that Johnny Cash was like the ideal masculine nationalist American, when that just really isn't what he's about and isn't what this picture was about. Questions are always going to be asked. There will always be issues to address in our society. And especially when a lot of famous artists are talking about things like this, you can't silence that. In an interview with Antonino D'Ambrosio, who directed a documentary about Johnny Cash's support of Native Americans, D'Ambrosio says, quote, "There is a tendency in this country to think that these movements are a thing of the past, and coming out of the 1960s in particular, that they were somehow addressed and resolved, with everyone living happily ever after. In fact, the opposite is true. These movements never cease, and it's important to be reminded that this is indeed the case. A truly democratic society requires participation and hard work in regard to ensuring that human and civil rights are protected, uplifted, and always expanded. This movement never ends." That still rings true today, obviously 60 years after the 1960s, and it'll continue to be true until we can create a political landscape that's based on empathy over anything else.
One of the illnesses is that there's too much money being spent on military, and there should be more spent on education and welfare, young people, the children, the elderly, especially the elderly. There's always been a lot of things wrong with the country, but it's always been our obligation and opportunity to help straighten those things out. I love this country. I love America, for instance, I love this country.
To see this man's contributions to America turned into this,
To win is really sweet. The left will taste defeat. Comrade Kamala's such a clown, and that is why we're gonna take her down. I stood up in a sniper's line of fire. I went down, 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 then I raised my fist up higher.
It feels like such a violation of his legacy. After a white supremacist at Charlottesville in 2017 was filmed wearing a Johnny Cash t-shirt, Johnny's kids released this joint statement renouncing the association thoroughly, saying, quote, "To any who claim supremacy over other human beings, to any who believe in racial or religious hierarchy, we are not you. Our father, as a person, icon, or symbol, is not you. We ask that the Cash name be kept far away from destructive and hateful ideology. We choose love." Johnny Cash, the tough as nails guy, the man in black, he stood for beliefs in human dignity, in second chances and forgiveness. To live as an example of that kind of love and vulnerability requires a lot more courage than blind conformity or allegiance to the identity of Americans past. It also takes a lot more courage than putting a fucking mask over your whole face and going to DC to say that America needs to be white again or whatever, say how oppressed you are. I fucking hate this timeline, honestly. Patriotism is wanting to make your country better tomorrow than it is today. In this divisive era of America we're in right now, it's harder than ever to explain the concept of this radical empathy and need for social reform to the people who are still lost in the sauce. But Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson said it best in To Beat the Devil, quote, "If you waste your time at talking to the people who don't listen, to the things that you are saying, who do you think's gonna hear? If you should die explaining how the things that they complain about are things they could be changing, who do you think's gonna care?" Just as Johnny and Chris knew it back then, it's important to keep on, all the while hoping that somebody's gonna care. In this divisive era of America, it's not helping anybody to claim that art, music, and especially country music aren't political. It's not helping anyone when we have Jason Aldean exemplifying BLM or ICE protests as nothing more than troublemakers who want to set some stuff on fire, while he's literally singing in front of a Tennessee courthouse where a black teenager was famously lynched. Not to mention, a lot of the stock protest footage from that video was actually from protests in Canada, but whatever, I guess that doesn't matter. I was raised very strict Christian, and even though I don't really identify with being Christian now, I know for a fact it is not Christian at all to write a worship song for the president because he's the chosen one, which, by the way, I'm not going to link that song here because fuck that. She's not getting any extra clicks off my back. But if you ever see the official video for that song, it's a wild one, dude. And then you just go along telling people you're not in a cult of personality? Like, what? It's not helping anyone when Morgan Wallen, who's arguably the biggest face of country music and drunk slur usage these days, agrees to go on America's biggest secular variety show and throws a weird tantrum about needing to get to God's country on a picture of his fucking private jet, bro. I'm not gonna lie, I think the media took that one a little too far out of proportion, but it still comes off as so bitchy, like poor little rich boy getting paid to do all the things that millions of people around the world dream of doing, getting to do once in their life. It's so bitchy. Why are you such a fucking pussy? Also, I guess that does help him because now he can sell you a t-shirt that says that, "Get me back to God's country." It didn't help anybody when at this year's Grammys, Jelly Roll said this gutless thing about Jesus is not owned by one political party and anybody can have a relationship with him, when really it's just like, not everybody should. Like, America's not a Christian nation. It was never supposed to be that. America was founded for every creed, every religion, every race, every tradition. It doesn't help anybody when the media criticizes Bad Bunny's award acceptance speeches at the Grammys as well. Like, they applauded Jelly Roll for shouting out God, when Benito literally started his album of the year acceptance speech by shouting out Puerto Rico and then saying gracias a Dios.
Gracias a Dios, gracias a la academia. Before I say thanks to God, I'm gonna say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans. The hate get more powerful with more hate. The only thing that is more powerful than hate is love.
Don't you come for my Benito, because that man's a national treasure and I love him. I love you, Benito. At the end of the day, this conversation turns into one about media literacy, about confirmation bias, and about the emotional response we have to the music that we like. And don't get me wrong, it's totally okay to like music just because it makes you feel good or it sounds good to your ears, if that makes sense. But I wish more people, especially country fans, would actually hear what the songs they like are saying. You get a lot more out of the music that way and maybe even learn something new. There are still tons of newer and up-and-coming non-MAGA country artists who value social justice, reform. If you like country music, I would recommend Colter Wall, Billy Strings, Casey Musgraves, Orville Peck. Oh my God, I saw Orville Peck at the Troubadour in LA one time, and I had tears in my eyes. That man has the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. Sturgill Simpson, Margot Price, Brian Andrews, Jesse Wells, Sierra Farrell, Jason Isbell. I could go on and on. I've also been loving the Piedmont Raging Grannies channel on YouTube lately. I also have to shamelessly plug my brother-in-law's musical duo he has called Blake and Yeekeng. They're good Midwestern boys. They're super talented country writers and musicians. If you like tender-hearted country music, you must simply check them out. Please, please, I'm begging. You can find them on Spotify and Apple Music, and I'll link their website down below. And if you want just a little recommendation, my favorite songs of theirs are My Home, Simple Things, and If This Is Death. So yeah, check them out if you feel so inclined. That's all I've got for today, my sweet, sweet angels. If you enjoyed this video, I would really, really appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. I'm but a humble baby YouTube video creator, but I've been having fun writing and filming and editing these. I would love to make this channel a bigger aspect of my life and keep it growing. I have a lot of things that interest me that I want to talk about, so thank you for being here. I hope you'll come again soon. Always remember, kids, it's nice to be cool, but it's cool to be nice.